In today's lesson, we're going to be comparing decimals. So if you look at the worksheet that you got for comparing decimals, the first example they give you is 59.296 and 59.6. There's different ways you can do this. One way that does make it a little bit easier is to follow the steps that they give you on the paper. It says to line up the decimal points, annex, which means to add, zeros where necessary. So if I were to rewrite these and line up the decimal points, because when you're comparing numbers, you want to compare values. And by lining up the decimal points, it tells me how much each digit is worth. Adding on zeros, what they mean by that is if you look, if I line up these two decimal points, this 6 stops in the tens place. I can add on 2 more zeros to fill in that spot. A lot of times, the biggest mistake students will make is look at this number and say, wow, look at all the digits it has. It has to be worth more. But that is not true. That's like looking at pennies and saying, wow, I have 20 pennies. That must be more than $1 because I only have $1. You can't really look at it that way because you have to look at the value. Well, pennies is only worth cents. So is there any way 20 cents is going to be more than $1, which is worth 100 cents? And we both would say, no, that's silly. So don't make that mistake and just look at the numbers and look at how many digits. You want to look at the places that those digits are in. So when you look at this, you'll see that, wow, 59, their whole numbers are exactly the same. So I'm not going to look on this side. I'm going to look to the right of the decimal point. And you should notice really quickly that in the tens place, there's different digits. So if you were to add on zeros, you would real quickly see that this is 600 and this is 296. So if you were to compare the two, we know that 600, again, you can add on those two zeros so that they both go out, not 600,000, sorry, it is 600, this is 296. But you'll notice that this number here is larger than that number there. So you would have to put a less sign in. So there's different ways you can do it. You can do it place by place. You can do it by putting in those extra zeros and saying, wow, this is 296,000th. This is 600,000th. Having 600 is more than having 296. So that is why the Pac-Man is going to eat the larger number. Remember, the larger section of your inequality symbol should always be facing the larger number. So you can rewrite them and line them up to see which one is greater and which one is smaller. You could also look at them by going place by place. So number 4 on this worksheet is giving you 5 and 500ths, and you have to compare that to 5 and 50 thousandths. Now again, you could rewrite the numbers underneath each other, or you could go through and say, okay, I'm going to look at the ones place. This one's a 5, this one's a 5. So they're the same. So now I'm going to look at the tens place. We have a 0 and a 0. Now I'm going to look at the hundreds place. We have a 5 and a 5. They're the same. So now I'm going to look at the thousands place. This one has nothing there. So I could add on a 0. This one already has a 0. So to be honest, neither one of them is greater than the other because they are equal. So you could do it by rewriting them or looking place by place. So for number 4, 5 and 500ths is the same exact thing as having 5 and 50 thousandths. Number 5 is asking you to compare 9.087 and 9. So they're asking you to compare 0.807. Again, you can line up your decimal points and rewrite them underneath, or you can go place by place. Here's a 9, here's a 9. Here's a 0, here's an 8. So that's the first place where they are different. This one's an 8, this one's a 0. I know that 0 is less than 8, so I would put that sign in. Some people like to look at it as saying, instead of going place by place, looking at this whole thing as 87 and this whole thing as 807. 87 is still less than this number. So there's many different ways you can do this. I'm just going to give you one that's not on your paper. What if I have 21 and 2/10, and I'm comparing that to 21 and 2/100, 21 and 1/10, and I want to compare them. First thing you should notice is the whole numbers are the same. This one has a 0 in the tens place. This one has a 1. So once again, I'm going to put a less than sign in there because 0 is less than 1. You could have added on another 0, so you're out to the same places. And then you would have 2 and 10. 2 is still less than 10. So there's many different ways you can compare, but you need to make sure you're not looking at just the digits, but you're looking at the places they are in.